They say that when you're facing extreme danger, your life flashes before you. If you think that's sad, consider facing it before you even have enough life to flash before your eyes. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Deaths and injuries can be prevented by using the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to know what is appropriate for each age and size.
Also clean. Is regular clean clean enough for your family? Not when you can have Clean Coal Clean. Clean Coal harnesses the awesome power of the word clean to make it sound like the cleanest clean there is. Clean Coal is supported by the coal industry, the most trusted name in coal.
Hi, this is Laura Kellums with Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, and you're watching Public Access Television in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Hi, with me tonight is Jonelle Grace. Jonelle, how are you?
Hi. Hi, nice to be here, Richard.
Good. Jonelle, I guess you're like a jack of all trades, aren't you?
Or Jill.
Jill of all trades, or Jacqueline of all trades. You're an actor, you're a playwright, and a director. How does a person get that, to do that many things in a short lifetime?
Well, I think they're all related in a way. I mean, and I started out, as I think a lot of people do, acting in college, and then I took a directing class, and I discovered that I really liked that. I first sort of experienced that when I was in dance and liked choreography, and so that was it's a lot different.
Yeah.
And then I took a playwriting class because I just wanted to do that, and then I discovered that I really, really liked writing. So I would say just the classes I took.
What's your first love? What's your favorite of all those three activities?
Oh gosh. I don't know that there's a favorite, really. I think the one that you feel maybe the most proud of is as a writer.
Yeah.
Because you've actually created this play and the characters have come somehow from you. So I think that that's, when you accomplish that and you see it produced, that's the time you're the most proud. And so I would say writing.
Okay. Because you've been acting for a long time. That was the first thing you were doing. So what was the first thing you were ever in?
The very first thing ever?
First, yeah.
Oh, I think I was in some horrible play in high school called Aunt Tilly Went to Town or something like that. And then it was pretty bad. And then when I was a senior, we did a play. And I can't remember the name of it, but I remember I was this spoiled brat in this haunted house, and my grandmother thought it was the perfect role for me. But didn't really do anything until in college, until I was a senior. And because I had been involved in dance first and spent a lot of time in that in my sophomore and junior years. And then when I was a senior, I tried out for A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Right.
That was directed by George Kernodle, and I was just like a little fairy.
Now, where was this?
That was at the University of Arkansas. And then I auditioned for a play called The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds. And
Is that by Paul Zindel?
yes, it
Okay.
is. And very good.
Thank you.
And I was cast in the role of Tilly, who was supposed to be a 14-year-old, very shy girl. And that's when I really fell in love with it, because it was so exciting to be able to create a character like that.
Because you didn't start out. You didn't realize you wanted to be an actor, did you?
No, no. I think I always liked it, and I always enjoyed acting, but it never occurred to me that it was something that people did as a career. It didn't even dawn on me.
So when did it occur to you that you could actually do this as a career, or you wanted to make it a career?
Well, I think really when I went back to school to get my MFA, and I made that decision, because even though I'd gone through undergraduate school and had gone on to get my MA, I still thought, in a sense, that I guess it hadn't occurred to me yet that I would enjoy teaching.
Right.
And I only had an undergraduate, well, I had an MA, but you can't really teach in college with an MA.
Yeah.
And so all my friends were in business, so I kind of got sucked up into the business world and was involved in a long-distance company and sold computers, but grew very unhappy doing that.
Why?
I don't know. I remember one time I hadn't been on a vacation in 2 years, and I finally was on this vacation in Mexico, and it just dawned on me, who cared whether you saved someone a couple of bucks on their long-distance bill? I mean, in the scheme of things, in life's scheme of things,
right.
It just didn't seem important to me. And I felt like, I said, well, what is something that you've always really loved? And it was theater and dance, and I thought, well, that's what I want to do. Whatever happens, that's what I want to do, but I really do need what we call a terminal degree, either an MFA or a PhD.
What's called a terminal degree?
Because supposedly that's the last one you'll get.
Okay.
And usually in theater, well, in the arts are really the only opportunity to have that choice between PhD and MFA, but MFAs are more performance-oriented. So the idea is that if you get an MFA, then you're going to keep acting, you're going to keep directing, you're going to keep writing.
Right.
And that, in essence, as opposed to publishing books, is where you will spend your efforts and be recognized.
Right. Okay. If you were to look back on your acting from those days, how would you feel about it?
Gosh, I think it's interesting, because I think when I first started out, there were certain roles that I identified with,
Yeah.
and they came very naturally.
What were they?
And then there were roles that I couldn't get, and I don't think I did a really great job. I mean, I'm talking about back in maybe like the 70s. And,
Right.
and when I went to Georgia was the first time I discovered comedy.
Yeah.
And I was in a play called The Nerd, and it was a very physical play, and I was like, wow, this is really fun. The audience laughs. And even though I did I did Road to Mecca after coming back to Arkansas, but most of the roles that I've been in since I've moved back here are comedies, or the characters have very, they may be darker comedies,
Yeah.
and there's more serious aspects of the character, but still, bottom line, they're funny and they're physical.
Yeah.
And which is exactly what I'm getting ready to do too, is a very physical farce up at the university this summer.
What kind of roles were you identifying with when you were older?
What? I'm sorry,
What kind of roles were you identifying with that were the easier ones for you to play when you were younger?
Well, they did tend to be, well, in a sense, serious roles, and more dramatic roles, but they were characters that in a sense were intelligent, but they were also characters that had a lot of sensitivity to them.
Yeah.
I remember, and age didn't seem to matter. You know, I could play Tilly, and then I remember, I guess it was maybe a few years after that, I played Fräulein Schneider in Cabaret.
Yeah.
And, you know, that role was a woman in her 60s, and I felt totally connected with that part. And yet then I played this sort of eccentric wife in Equus, and I didn't feel connected at all with that character. I don't know that I had the life experience yet, and I think when you're younger, that can limit you.
So you can't tap into as much.
Right.
Right. Okay. So when did you start playing, I guess, the comedy roles? And really enjoying
Really
it?
not until 1989, which was my first summer stock experience doing theater in North Carolina. And that particular summer was when I was in The Nerd and discovered it for the first time, really. And then the next summer I had an opportunity to be in I'm Not Rappaport,
Yeah.
which was another, role that was, very realistic and serious in some ways, because it's this daughter who's very concerned about the welfare of her father, but still a lot of comic elements to the character. And
If you had your choice of auditions to go to today, and what sort of play would you be in the mood to do right now? I know you've got comedy coming up this summer. Black Comedy by Peter
it's called
Schaefer.
Black Comedy by Peter Schaefer. Gosh, I think that I just look at what comes around, and then I make a determination. Is that something that I want to audition for or not? Because it is a lot of time, and you have to want to give up that time. I think there's some roles that I would like to do as I grow older. I'm looking forward to being able to audition for some roles that, as I get older, that are older.
Oh, you don't mean specific parts, but types of roles?
Yes, in a sense. Actually, I want to do Marigolds over again, but I want to be the mom. I think that would be really fun. I love that play, and actually, Paul Zindel has some other wonderful plays too. They're pretty biting.
Yeah.
But they're wonderfully written, and the characters are intriguing. I like characters that are very unusual or complex. I mean, sometimes they aren't necessarily both.
Yeah.
But that have just a sort of edge of weirdness to them. You go through life and you have to be so responsible and everything. It's wonderful to have a chance to be a character that is a little eccentric or a little off the wall or just out there.
Okay.
So.
We're going to look at a clip from the Owl and the Pussycat right now.
Okay.
And we'll come back and we'll talk about that when we come back. So stay with us.
All right. I said it. I meant it. Now, will you get out of here? Will you go?
I never met anybody in my life that made me feel so cheap and dirty.
Well, then get out of here.
I don't understand why I love you.
Well, get out. I hate you.
Not as much as I hate you.
Well, then get out. Get out.
No! Well, I'm going to stay here and take you right to your face.
All right, then I'm.
Fine, great, go on.
It's the only way.
Well, go ahead, get out.
What do you mean, get out? This is my home. I live here. You can't tell me to get out.
Yeah, well, I'm not getting out. You can try to throw me out if you want to.
I wouldn't dirty my hands.
You wouldn't like your slimy hands on me.
I'll just turn you over to the police.
Fine, you do that.
That's what I should do.
So go ahead, call them.
Well, that's what I'll do. That's just what I'll do.
Well, go ahead.
You can bet on it. You can just bet on it.
You do that.
That's exactly what I'll do.
You do that. You call the police. It's fine with me.
Don't you think for a moment that I won't?
Oh, you do it.
Oh, you bet I would. And that's just exactly what I'll do.
Fine, you turn me in. You do it. You're the man to do it.
I most certainly am, and that's what I'm gonna do. Nothing serious, Victor. I'm just a little tired. I had a very bad time last night. No, I don't take them. They're enervating. Yes, I should be feeling better around 12. I'll come by work then. Goodbye, Victor.
Ooh, look at the big man. Don't you love me? Oh, that's right. Only in the bedroom. It depends on what room we're in. Hey, why don't we take a shower together? I want to find out how you feel about me in the bathroom.
Doris, I won't be coming back to this apartment tonight.
Come on, sweetheart. Just let me...
back.
Yeah, but you'll be back after work to pack your things, though. Hey, do you want me to pack for you and have it ready?
Shut up.
I could put it all outside the door so you wouldn't even have to come inside.
Your humor's like you are, crude and clumsy.
Oh, come on, baby.
Oh, if you call me baby once more, I'll smash your television set.
I think you got a fever.
Oh, God. Are you listening? Are you laughing? She says I have a fever.
You're not going to work today. You're getting right back into bed.
Do you hear that, God? The tower of my mind is crashing down, wrecked by a termite. And now the termite wants to put me to bed. God, do something.
You better not talk to God that way. He'll strike you dead.
Oh, no, he won't. Not while he's having so much fun with me.
Okay, we just watched a clip from Al and the Pussycat. Now, how long ago did you make that? Were you in that?
Oh, 2 years ago
2
this
years?
October.
And who else was in Al and the Pussycat?
That was H. Keith Lyons from
Yeah.
Siloam Springs, and Gary Lyons directed it. No relation.
Okay. So how'd you like doing Al and the Pussycat?
It was fun. I mean, she was a very interesting character. I remember that at first I felt a little unconnected to it, but then I really, you should have picked up on this. I should have picked up on this immediately. But I was talking with Gary, the director, one night, and we started talking about, a lot of times as an actor you'll think of your movement, and if there's a particular animal that you move, you have that energy, and it was like, well, yes, it's a cat. I mean, that's why the playwright called it the Owl and the Pussycat. And so once I had that sort of physicality, because one thing I've learned is that if I find the rhythm or the energy of a character, then the internal comes right along with it. So I work sort of from the outside in, as opposed to psychologically thinking, who is this character? And, I mean, you do have to know information about your character, but being able to connect with it, I really do work from the outside in. And
do you ever get to a point where you actually use, I don't mean to imply that you're psychotic, but do you ever...
Well, we don't know. Richard, it might be true. No.
Do you ever get to a point where you actually, you really identify with the character so strongly, like on the stage you are that character?
No, but I think what happens is the actor part of you, and I don't even know that it's the actor part that goes away. It's when you're so totally there in the moment that, something happens, and it's as if it's really happening to you, and you have a very genuine, honest, emotional response to that. And that doesn't always happen. Usually sometimes in the rehearsal process it happens, and that again allows you to, to know where your character is truly and honestly, and experience that so that you can replicate it on those times when it's not, as emotionally impacting as it was that first time. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no. What's the best kind of chemistry working with another actor? I mean, what does it depend on? For you to be able to make your character work?
I think it's a true action-reaction, a reciprocal action-reaction between the characters. That character's tuned into you, so that, I mean, nothing's worse than being in a play, and the characters are the other actors, like totally into their lines and what they're doing, as opposed to using what you're giving, or vice versa. So when you're really using what the other person gives you, then it's great and it's exciting, and that makes those moments really, really happen, and it makes them motivated, and it makes it easy to perform, because you're not acting, you're reacting.
You ever been trapped in a play with bad actors?
Oh, everybody has.
Does that throw you off?
No, I think that, at least not in the times that I've experienced it. I think that there were enough other actors in the production that I did connect with, that, you just prepared yourself.
Yeah.
For, sometimes you're in a play with an actor who has a really difficult time with lines, and you never know
Right.
whether they're going to go up on their lines and all of a sudden there's nothing for you to respond to. So you just have to prepare for those kind of things.
Wow, okay, and you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't throw you off being like, all of a sudden you're in a scene and the person is just atrocious?
No, you just go with it. I don't know how to explain it, but you just go with it.
What about audience reaction?
Audiences are so incredibly different. Every performance is different, and the audience reacts in a certain way. We in a way we have names for them.
Yeah.
You know, sometime an audience, we call them the Friday night audience. They're really with it. They're really into it. For some reason, people who go out on a Friday night are out to have a good time. Sometimes they can have too good of a time, you know, if they've been out doing a little partying before they came to the performance. Matinees tend to be harder. You have to work harder energy-wise as a performer. But I've had some of my best performances on a closing matinee before, too. And I think that is a lot of times the finality of the moment.
Yeah.
If that's something that's also at work in the play, then it just adds to that emotional sort of level of the performance.
So you're talking about audiences being different at different times then. So is there, I guess it's different for the cast at different times.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can never expect the same thing. You can never expect that they're always going to laugh at a particular line. And then some performances, they'll laugh at something that you never even considered to be funny. And you're always going backstage and saying, boy, that's a weird audience, or boy, that's a dead audience, or boy, isn't that audience great. And you really do, usually at a close of a run, you know that there was a particular audience that was the best. They give back, and they let themselves, you know, buy into the world of the play.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you know, putting some big wall between themselves and you as a performer. And most of the times I perform in very intimate theaters, so you can really feel that energy.
What do you mean an intimate theater? How do you define an intimate theater?
A theater in, number one, in which the house is smaller. When we perform in Star Theater, that's usually a maximum capacity, the way we have it set up, of around 160 to 170 people, usually an average of around 160. And a lot of times you are as close to the front row of the audience as I am to you right now.
Right. Okay. You like that better than there's a lot more involvement, emotional involvement.
I love that. I love that way of performing. Traditional, what we call proscenium theaters, which are, you know, they have sort of a picture frame, what they call a proscenium arch.
Yeah.
That it really, I mean, even though that is one of the oldest styles of theater, at least since the Renaissance, the Italian Renaissance, because it did frame the world of the play, it also tends to make the audience sit back and think that they're looking at something inside a picture, as opposed to being drawn into the world.
They know, instead of being eavesdroppers, they know they're watching a play.
Right.
Okay. What actors do you really like? What actors really impress you?
Oh, I think when I talked to Kat, she asked me the same question. It was very difficult for me, except to say that I like any actor that totally captivates me when I'm watching them. I don't care whether they're an actor from here. I don't care whether they're an actor that is a famous actor. I've seen plays in New York where I didn't feel like anyone did anything for me in particular, and I've seen plays where they did. It's a feeling of just being totally drawn into in a sense, the energy of and the awesomeness of that character. Really great actors are just, if you've never had the opportunity to see what I call a truly great performance, and I know I mentioned to Kat that like Sam Waterston in The Master Builder at Hartford Stage, he was like that. I mean, you just sat and you could, he just had such and you wouldn't know that to watch him on film, you know, on TV, because he's sort of laid back and everything. The intensity was absolutely riveting. I mean, you just were totally riveted by that character. I saw a performance, too, of All My Sons at the Alliance Theater in Atlanta, And I was sitting up in the balcony, which is fairly removed and gave a different perspective. And yet the moments of tension in that play were so incredible. We had 2 intermissions, and I would just go away, and I would go, my gosh, it's so wonderful to watch this. I don't think that you really think of, when you watch a great performance, it's not, unless it's a one-person show,
Right.
you're not really saying, oh, that person is great. It's the play itself works. And I think that's one thing you realize when you direct, is that it doesn't, one great actor is not going to make a great show.
Right.
What you have to have is this, if you have to build those tensions, and you have to keep that audience connected, and you have to manipulate that energy so that the audience is always being shaken up just a little bit.
So they can't be lulled into a sense of complacency.
Right.
Right. So speaking of directing, though, and you've been directing for some time now, too, haven't you?
Yes. Yes.
So what made you want to direct?
Well, I like I said earlier, I took a directing class, actually when I was still a senior, and I did a 1-act play, and it was fun. I just really liked it. I loved figuring out those patterns and the focus, and I went on to take another directing class, and I did another 1-act play, and then I went on to do direct Vanities, actually I did Subject Was Roses before that, and then did Vanities, and so I just kept wanting to do it. It was really exciting to me to do it. There were still a lot of things that I think I was still struggling to find out. It's always difficult when you have it's almost harder to work with really good actors, or if you have an uneven cast, because you tend to forget them and concentrate on getting the other actors where they need to be, and perhaps don't give the better trained actors and the more experienced actors everything that they need. When I went to Georgia, Dr. Staub, who was really my chairman of the department and one of my major professors, his whole concept of acting was based on energy and the manipulation of energy on stage. So that gave me another level to add to directing. And then just rethinking about the purposefulness of creating patterns and repetition of patterns and what that means. So I think that all in all it's just sort of and I just like it.
Yeah. When you start, I guess the first thing you do, what sort of plays do you really look forward to directing? Are they like your acting? Do you really look forward to comedies, or is there a different criteria here?
With adult plays that I direct, I really look for plays that are dramatically based. I still like to have, comic elements, humor that is in the play, but basically they are dramas. And plays that have relationships that are struggling, or a character that is, in a sense, even when it's the events that are part of what is the struggle for the character, it's still the relationships. I like plays about relationships and the struggle between relationships. So I think that whenever I look for a play to direct, I look for that type of play. And a lot of times I end up directing plays that do have a theme, so to speak, or a statement to make. Even though in Twilight of the Golds, one of the things I loved about it was that it took the perspective of everybody. Right. And it did not say, oh, I think you should feel this way, or look what my message as the playwright is, or what my voice as the playwright is. And I really did like that, and I liked how all of the characters were so honest in what they believed.
Now, you directed that last year for Ozark Stageworks.
Gosh, has it been? Yes, it was last year.
Was it
seems
last
like
year?
a long.
Yeah.
It was last year. A year ago last
1998.
March. So.
Right, 1998. Yeah. So we're going to watch a small clip from Twilight of the Golds right now.
Okay.
And we'll be right back.
Don't you see that all the things that you love about me are tied to that one element that makes you queasy? Every human being is a tapestry,
and you pull one thread, one undesirable color, and the art unravels. You end up staring at the walls. When Brunhilde died.
Oh, God, here we go. I should have known this was coming.
When Brunhilde dies, when she sacrifices herself, she's hoping that something better will rise out of the ashes. She doesn't stick around to see what that something is. She leaves that to nature and fate. Hers is an act of love, and that's our only hope.
Well, that's beautiful. I think I can skip Course in Miracles this week. Are you finished?
One more story, and then I'll go. You can battle it out in your conscience when I'm gone, but I won't leave until you hear about Sigmund and Sieglinde.
Go ahead.
Sigmund and Sieglinde are brother and sister, twins, separated in childhood. Years later, they meet and they fall in love.
Oh, this is gross.
Or what? Will you open your ears and really listen? This is the only way I know how to make sense of things. They fall in love, and then they realize who they are. But this knowledge only spurs them on further, and in a fit of ecstasy, they consummate their feelings for each other.
I don't know where you're going with this, but I think I better tell you it's out of the question.
Sigmund is killed for his crime against the laws of morality. And Sieglinde, unable to face a life without her beloved brother, seeks only death. But before she can end her life, Brunhilde tells her that she cannot die, for she is carrying Sigmund's child. She's bringing her brother's child into the world. Sieglinde's overjoyed, and she hides in the forest and gives her life in the delivery of a new incarnation of her brother.
What happens to her son?
He is Siegfried, the bravest hero the world has ever known. Without fear, he breaks all the gods' outdated laws into two. He follows his heart and what he learns from nature. He understands the calls of waters as beauty.
What does he do?
He slays a dragon and walks through rings of magic fire. He then awakens Brunhilde from her sleep, and she tells him that she's the feminine side of himself, and the two proclaim their love. You see, by joining with her, Siegfried reaches man's true potential, both masculine and feminine, brave and loving.
What happens to
Well, the world which has become cruel and corrupt destroys him. He's stabbed in the back by evil men. Such a hero cannot survive in such a decaying civilization.
So Sieglinde went through all of that for nothing.
She brought a beautiful hero into the world.
And the world destroyed him. I don't want that to happen to my child.
Then change the world.
Look at me. I couldn't make it through pre-med. You wanted me to change the world.
You can do this.
You know how I don't like being tested. I just want the world that Mom and Dad had when we were growing up. That's all. I just want to live in that world. Is that so much to ask?
We can't have that. Even if it existed in the first place, which I doubt, it's out of our grasp now. We can't have what our parents had. We don't have the faith. We don't have the money. We don't have the leaders, the confidence, or trust. So what do we do to combat the malaise? We shut ourselves off. We shrink from any challenge and take the easy way out. We become fearful because we doubt our ability to love. But that's not you. I know you, Suzanne. You have the strength. You're not shallow.
You don't think so?
No. I think that's a card you play because it's easy. But that's not you. I know you. There's greatness in you, Suzanne Gold. Don't be afraid. Awaken and usher in a new era and take care of your child, okay? Okay?
Okay, that was from Twilight of the Golds,
Yes.
which you directed last spring for Ozark Stageworks. So I understand when this movie was made for Showtime, it had a substantially different ending.
Yes, it had a considerably different ending.
More of a
And
happy ending, or?
Yes, in a sense. It was almost a tragic ending in the play, and I think that that particular tragic ending, substantiated what the play was about. But I don't think that the movie ending did.
Right. When you do the auditioning, what do you look for when you audition?
Gosh, that one was a difficult one because I had a lot of people audition for that play, especially for the lead role. And again, it came down to the hardest roles to cast were the sister and the brother.
Yeah.
And I looked for that, something happening between them. Not only a connection between those two characters, but a contrast. They were supposed to have been so close growing up that I needed that feeling, that naturalness between them. And I also, because the play was serious, I was looking for actors who could find the humor in it as well.
And which actors did you choose?
I ended up casting Gary Lyons as the brother, and Holly Weber as the sister. And then I had the rest of the cast was great too. Ended up casting Holly's real husband in life as her husband, and that worked really well.
Yeah.
And then I had a great father and mother too. So Ann Rapp and Jack Volker.
Yeah. What's it like? What's the rehearsal process like? Is that because you're getting with all these people who've never really seen this material before, right?
Yes. That particular rehearsal process, and actually I find because this is the type of plays I tend to direct, at least with adults. Now, my kids' productions usually are different, but we end up doing a lot of sort of psychological exercises to try to get at the different levels, because if you're doing a drama that is rather complex, then there's a lot of levels underneath those characters, and sometimes it's hard to tap into all of those levels.
Yeah.
And all those levels, of course, they're sandwiched together, and they're all there at the same time.
Right.
And so we would tend to do some very, I don't want to say unusual, but you almost feel like you're doing therapy sessions as opposed to acting, and then you have to come back and put all of that, all of the staging and that type of work as a director on top of it. But in that play, we had to have those characters able to reach those levels, or the play was not going to work. And I remember in directing A Shayna Madel, I spent a lot of time doing the same thing, really working with those characters, with the actors rather, to find those different levels in the characters and talking about it sometimes. Why do you think you would do this?
Because I guess as a director, they look to you for a lot of guidance, don't they?
Yes. And I think in a sense they look for you. I mean, ideally, yes, it would be wonderful if you could tell your cast, well, I need you to, here's your role, go out, research it, explore it. But when you're working in a community such as Northwest Arkansas, where people aren't professional actors in the sense that that's their full-time job, people work. And oftentimes, you're coming to rehearsal right after work, and maybe somewhere in there you're having to learn your lines.
Yeah.
So you have to really maybe do more than you would in a situation where it was someone working full-time as an actor, because they don't, and I myself, had to rely on directors too to help me find those connections, because we're putting it together so fast.
You ever had a situation where it just didn't quite gel with the actors?
I find not that the play didn't quite gel. I think that one of the things I realized with Twilight was it really, really became apparent to me that the work of art is the actual creation of that play in front of the audience.
Yeah.
That is when it happens. And sometimes in a given performance, because it's there and it's live and it's happening, maybe the builds weren't quite as much as you would like for them to have been one night. Or maybe the timing, the pacing seemed just a hair too slow. And of course, as a director, you're being more judgmental than an audience member might be. But you know what they're capable of doing, or you know what the play is capable of doing, so you want it to be the best it can be every time, and sometimes it's not. It's not that it's bad, but it's just not, it didn't quite reach where it needed to be. I know in Twilight's, I think that was the Saturday night performance, it was all there. And it was just, you know, a wonderful, wonderful production. And the other, I mean, I was very happy with other performances too, but that particular one was when I felt like we had indeed created that work of art.
I think that was the one, the performance I went to was a Saturday night performance.
Oh, okay.
Aside from directing adults, because you also direct a lot of kids. don't
Oh,
you?
yes. I just finished working with a whole bunch of kids. And it's fun. It's really, it's very, very different because you are teaching them not only about acting and creating characters, but you're teaching them about the discipline of theater.
Right.
And it's, some of the kids I've worked with now for like 6, 7 years, almost since I moved back here.
Yeah.
And it's really fun working with those kids because they have learned a lot about the discipline of theater. They still have things to learn, but you know, most of them are only in the 8th and 9th grade. I mean,
Yeah.
I have some that are older, so I imagine by the time they get into high school, they're going to be just wonderful, just like college students to work
Yeah.
with. And then there's some college students that haven't learned the discipline of theater.
Right.
I really try to, finding plays for our young companies is always a challenge too, because you want to challenge every actor. You want every role to be important, so I have to look for plays that, even though not everyone's the lead, they can continually change characters and be part of what's happening on stage, so that they're continually involved. And that's always a challenge. So, but they're great. They're wonderful. Sometimes I can be having a terrible week or
Yeah.
a terrible night, and I'll go in, and by the time I leave, I'm in a good mood. It's wonderful seeing how they grow. And when they finally make that connection, you know, as an actor,
Yeah.
and they're not just up there, you know, being entertaining, but they made it, and you
Yeah.
see them start to create these nuances of characters, and you go, they crossed over the edge. I mean, they know what it's all about now. They know it's not just getting up there and being loud, but
Do you ever work with some kids that you just know are going to be great actors when they get older?
oh yes, I have some of them right now that if they want to pursue it, they will definitely be great actors. And a lot is to be said for perseverance. I've known college students that auditioned for plays and never got cast, and they wanted to be an actor, and they kept after it, and you know, they're touring now with productions. And I've seen students in the companies that that they really wanted to do it, and they kept working, and maybe they weren't the most talented, but all of a sudden they make this giant leap, you know, just this huge leap. And so that is part of it too, that commitment and that sticking to it. Because I've seen some tremendously talented kids that just, you know, gave it up. And there's nothing wrong with giving it up,
Right.
because there's so many other things to do, but it really does take a commitment and a dedication. And so some keep at it, and then some don't. And
Yeah. You work with kids through Arts Live, don't you?
I work with kids really through a partnership program between Arts Life Theater and Walton Arts Center. And it's really incredible, because it's going to be an even more exciting partnership next year, because the Walton Arts Center is going to actually have their plays in the season brochure.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's going to be exciting.
So how long has Arts Live been around?
Oh, since '83, actually incorporated in '84, where it started out as a presenting organization, presenting and booking other arts, you know, presentations into the schools, and then we became a producing theater after I moved back here, and so that is what we are right now. We do produce. We've produced a lot of original plays, which I was commissioned to write, and we toured around the state. A lot of those dealing with some social issues that affect kids, whether that be HIV or whether that be gangs and substance abuse, and that's been really interesting, not only in the schools, but the times that we've gone in, like to residential treatment centers for kids or the juvenile detention center, and gotten the feedback from the kids in facilities. So we will be starting to put some of those plays out again not next year. Next year we're predominantly just going to be doing some touring productions of Miracle Worker.
Right. When you do, when you write, what sort of things do you like to write? Do you like to write? Is that a good question? Or
Yes.
what are you
yes.
drawn to writing?
What are you drawn to?
writing?
Well, it's really interesting because I know I told Kat when we were talking that I learned about playwriting at the University of Georgia, where I went to get my MFA in playwriting,
Right.
but I became a playwright through Arts Live. I think it's really, maybe not every playwright goes through this, but I know a lot of them do. The first things you want to write about are your life.
Yeah.
And so you start writing, you know, sort of yourself disguised and
Right.
situation that you worked through. And it's, as Eugene O'Neill can tell you in doing if you were here, doing Long Day's Journey into Night, I think it took him 20 years or something to write that play. It's just very difficult to get a perspective, but it's what I was drawn to write. Well, when I was commissioned to write plays, I mean, I wasn't writing them about me, I was writing them about kids, and I would interview kids and talk to them and you know, do workshops to try to get input from them. And all of a sudden, it was more exciting to write. And certainly, there were characters that I could identify with. Yeah. And yet, I think that being able to sort of take in and look at the world and then reshape it,
Yeah.
At least for me, became a more exciting way to write than, you know, worrying so much about working through my plays and
Is there anything
or my life through
Right.
plays.
Is there ever anything autobiographical in your plays?
Yes. I find that, well, in the first plays I wrote, there certainly were things. And then I would find that maybe I had known people growing up, that little bits and pieces of them got into the characters. But I think that's where it's exciting when there's little bits and pieces as opposed to just trying to tell your own story. Yeah. And yes, part of you is in that. And they've sort of, you know, come through you as they got created, which is always a miracle to me. Yeah. I don't know. It's like talking in voices. You know, you sit at the computer and all of a sudden it starts typing, you know, you start doing it and you're not really thinking about, at least on that first draft, you're not thinking about where am I going from here. It just
Right.
sort of comes out. And I know in Magic Carpet Ride, I had this African-American actress, and I had talked with a lot of young African-American girls, especially down in Little Rock,
Yeah.
that had brothers in gangs and that type of thing. And I mean, I don't know where her voice came from. It was just interesting.
Does a play ever go in a different direction than you think it's going to? Does it like veer off?
Yes, I mean, certainly it does, although my major playwriting professor at University of Georgia would be really happy to know that I finally discovered that having what we call a scenario or a road map of where you're going in the play
Yeah.
really does help focus it, because I really rebelled against that in college. I just didn't want to do it. And yet what happened was the play wasn't building like the building block as it should, because you knew you had to get to point, you know,
Right.
from point A you had to get to B, which is going to lead you to C, which is going to lead you to D, and on to the end of the play. A lot of times it also makes you have a clear idea of where you're going, so that you're not misled, as I have been before, when people start workshopping and giving you feedback on
Yeah.
what you've written,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they're trying to get you to write their play. And I know I was working on my thesis play in Georgia, and I was just amazed because someone said something, well, you know, I sense this this tension between the grandfather and the granddaughter, and all of a sudden it was like they had built into some sort of play about incest or something, and I never even intended that, and so I finally was able to go, wait a minute, what are they doing here? That's not where I wanted this play to go. That's not
Right.
what it's about.
Right.
But if your play is so ambiguous, that it seemed that you're unclear about where it's going, then you're sort of like a sitting duck
Right.
for people to say, well, I think it should go here.
So you have to have a clear vision. You have to have clear steps, sure
But some
footsteps.
playwrights don't work like that. Some playwrights, when they sit down, they have no idea where they're going with that play.
But that's not the case with you. You pretty much always know where you're going to go.
I found that it works better that way.
Okay. Are you working on any plays now? I mean, is there anything you're working on?
That is, as I'm sort of in a, how shall I say, if anyone sees this, they'll laugh and they'll say, oh yes, you've been in a rebalancing phase of your life forever. But it's not as easy to write when you're not being commissioned to write plays and they're due by a certain deadline. And one of the things that's happened is especially as I've worked more and more with kids, it's kind of pushed my writing to the side. And that's one thing that I've missed a lot and that I hope I can get back into my life. But that takes some conscious decision making and saying, well, how do you do that? You've got to give up something else. And I don't feel guilty about it because I feel like, well, it was meant for me to put my efforts and energies there.
Right.
But now I have a lot of people working with me in that program, and I can keep some kids for myself and still have plenty to share with everybody else.
Good. You do a lot of work with Ozark Stageworks.
Yes, I have over the years. In fact, I've been on their board of directors for a number of years too. This will be, I think I have one more month with them on the board of directors, but I have done a lot of directing and acting with them.
So what's the, I guess, is Ozark Stageworks, is there anything that makes them stand out as a theater group?
Well, I think Ozark Stageworks, I know for me personally, there have just been plays that I have wanted to do that, I mean, it's, when you're in a community, if there's something that you really, really want to do, to be able to have an organization to go to and propose that play to and say, you know, I really want to direct this, it's really important. And to then have someone be able to help you put that on its feet and help make it a reality. I think that there have been plays that I have performed in and plays that I've directed that have meant a great deal to me. And I don't think that I could have done them here if not for Ozark Stageworks.
Yeah, I think they do a lot of plays that are like very socially conscious, don't they?
Yes. Well, it is part of the mission of Ozark Stageworks that at least that they will always address something that is socially significant. In looking at, it's always a struggle, of course. I think at one time, we had what we called our dark year, and it was like every play was addressing something of social significance, and so everything was sort of like a downer to go see. And you have to balance your season.
It sounds like you all should have gone Valium that year or something.
I don't know what it was, but I think one thing we're trying to do now, the new direction, is to look at selecting a play that educates in the sense of having something that may even be a traditional play that students might want to see, whether, you know, interesting enough, one of the things we've talked about is Death of a Salesman, something that the students are reading in high school that they would like to see performed, and then something that enlightens, which is a play that has some social impact, that asks people to step back and look at the world maybe even from another perspective, and then entertainment. So that, in a sense, is what we're doing next season. We have a History of Fayetteville play, which will certainly educate, and Three Tall Women by Edred Albee, which will be enlightenment, talking about a woman and how her perspectives of life have changed as she's grown older. And then Chicago, which will certainly be entertaining.
Is that a musical?
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, I know that one.
And it's a fun one, too.
All right, all right.
And it's also, you know, just a touch naughty. Body, I should say. Not naughty, but body.
Well, we need more of that in
Yes,
Fayetteville.
yes, it's always fun.
All right. Jonelle, thanks very much for being on the show
Well,
tonight.
Richard, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it, too. We'll see you next week, so have a good week.
Hi, this is Laura Kellums with Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, and you're watching Public Access Television in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
They say that when you're facing extreme danger, your life flashes before you. If you think that's sad, consider facing it before you even have enough life to flash before your eyes. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Deaths and injuries can be prevented by using the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to know what is appropriate for each age and size.
Also clean. Is regular clean clean enough for your family? Not when you can have Clean Coal Clean. Clean Coal harnesses the awesome power of the word clean to make it sound like the cleanest clean there is. Clean Coal is supported by the coal industry, the most trusted name in coal.
Hi, the disquieting news came this week that TLC is dropping 19 and Counting, starring the infamous Duggar family. Not to worry, though, because Josh Duggar is now free to join the cast of Naked and Afraid. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid.
Politics in general and jobs that don't pay enough, 40-hour work weeks, books full of boring stuff, schools that should teach but kids don't learn a thing. These are a few of my least favorite things. Healthcare that won't heal and how people treat the earth, paying tolls and taxes, disbelief in self-worth, bitter cold winters that cut into spring. These are a few of my least favorite things. Religions that claim they're true, don't get me started. Standards that double and people cold-hearted. Judgment and bias when freedom don't ring. These are a few of my least favorite things. All the lying, all the killing. When I'm depressed and sad, I add that to all of my least favorite things, and then I feel really bad. I feel like Julie Andrews or something.